Good morning, my darlings, my angels, my loves, my he's, she's, and theys. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so I'm going to jump right into it. I wanted to respond or react to a clip from the I've Had It podcast, which a lot of people have pointed out to me how similar some of my messaging and some of their messaging is, especially as it relates to the fact that both the I've Had It podcasts host and myself live in Oklahoma, and we're speaking about a lot of the same themes as far as the encroachment of Christian nationalism and what it's like to grow up in an evangelical Christian conservative environment and all of that. And so I saw this clip and I wanted to react to it because I think it is a really good starting point for a lot of different conversations about what it means to grow up in this environment, as well as some of the other kinds of context that I have been talking about on my platform in relation to imperialism, religious fundamentalism, etc. And so I wanted to get into that. And then at the end of the stream, I have my really big announcement that I've been telling you guys I have for you. I have something very exciting to announce to you guys. So we will cover that here in a bit. So let's hop into the clip. It is a clip of Jennifer Welch on the I've Had It podcast. And this was only published 4 days ago. It is titled the I've Had It podcast news. What the fuck, MAGA Christians calling for the execution of the gays in horrifying message. Now, this gets into a lot of things that I cover on a regular basis. So here we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, let's get into it.
The MAGA movement wants to be the American Taliban. Put up this headline, Kylie. Polite and friendly in his OKC job. In other gig as church leader, he says gay people should be lined up and executed. This is in my city of Oklahoma City. A church leader who advocates executing people who are LGBTQ plus was promoted by the Oklahoma City Parks Department's Information and Technology Division. So here's a guy who, if you saw out at, 7-Eleven or something, he looks like he has this city job, but his side hustle is running a hate church where he says he wants to execute homosexuals. And on our other podcast, I've Had It, I recently had on Professor Scott Galloway, and he was talking about Hamas and how Hamas wants to execute gay people, wants to kill women. And I said, I think the MAGA movement is the same. And he thought I was being hyperbolic and that it was a false equivalency. And I want to play you guys this clip. Argue that the MAGA movement.
Yeah, first of all, that pastor who is calling for the execution of gay people, someone in the chat said that probably means he's a closeted gay, and I completely agree. Be prepared for seeing him on Grindr, I swear to goddess.
Is very similar to what Hamas wants to do. We are losing rights. They are trying to make this a Christian nationalist state in Oklahoma. It is the breeding grounds for what would be the American Taliban.
I do think it's a bit of a stretch and a false equivalence to compare the MAGA movement in any way to Hamas, who throws gay people off of roofs, believes in child marriage, says women can be executed if they don't comply. I mean, that's a different level. I don't think it's fair to compare MAGA.
Have you ever lived in an evangelical culture?
Do you really think you can equate that in any way to the way Hamas acquits themselves?
They believe one of the greatest sins is marriage that isn't between a man and a woman. Okay, so that is my conversation with Professor Scott Galloway. And he's...
Okay, so you can probably tell that is kind of the crux of what I really wanted to talk with you guys about today. And I'll get into more of the deep dive about my thoughts behind specifically comparing MAGA to Hamas after we watch the rest of the clip. But right out the gate, it's very tricky to navigate religious fundamentalism in general, because I think that religious fundamentalism can arise from multiple different inciting incidents. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, religious fundamentalism in general and how it is a manifest differently between MAGA and Hamas. because this comparison of MAGA and Hamas, like on the one hand, I agree that religious fundamentalism always results in violence, right? Particularly against the LGBTQ community, against women, etc. But I also understand that they are different in other ways. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about after we watch the rest of this clip. But Jennifer here does make some other really important points that I want to bring up, or that I want to give time to.
You know, lived in LA, lived in New York, now lives in London. And I think what a lot of people are not getting about what's going on inside this MAGA movement, it has a very cruel cult in the middle of it, which is this evangelical Christian movement. And one of their singular things that they preach against is homosexuality and gay marriage. But let's listen to this Oklahoma City employee. Let's listen to him. And I want you to remember what Scott Galloway said.
Hello from Australia. Good morning.
And how clueless the people in the Beltway and in academic circles are about what is happening in middle America with this death cult, this
I really actually do agree with her here as far as how people on the coast, or people who weren't raised in religious fundamentalism, people who weren't raised in the evangelical Christian environment, how much they don't understand how deep and insidious and sinister it is to be constantly surrounded by not just the religious fundamentalism, but as I cover a lot, the political indoctrination that goes hand in hand with this fundamentalism, with this, honestly, religious extremism. That is what evangelical Christianity is. That is what it is turning into, and I am predicting a rise in religious extremist violence here in the United States. And we have already seen it happen in a lot of different ways, like January 6th, what Jennifer is talking about here, etc. So I do very strongly agree with her that people who are not in this environment day in and day out and seeing all of the signs in people's yards, do you understand? Like, this is not fringe belief. Like, it might, on the whole, on the scale of all of the Christians in the United States, the entire population, even of the United States, Christian or otherwise, perhaps evangelical Christianity is the minority. It is the minority, right? But here where I'm at, here in Oklahoma, where Jennifer is at, it is not. It is where all of this Christian nationalism, all of this religious fundamentalism is like the breeding ground, right? And in a lot of ways, people point to Oklahoma as like the guinea pig or the trial of Christian nationalist theocracy policies, okay? Not just Oklahoma, but Texas as well. And so it is a lot more serious than I think people on the coast, apparently like Scott Galloway, are accepting or understanding or realizing, because we are seeing it grow and grow and grow and grow. And that is why I started formalizing my content and my live streaming months ago, right? Because I was like, I think that organized religion and the rise of Christian nationalism is the serious threat that we need to focus on here in so many different ways, because it is intertwined with all of the other violence that is going on. And it is both like religious fundamentalism is always both a result of and a tool of authoritarianism. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into a little bit more later on in this stream, but let's see what else Jennifer has to say.
American evangelical death cult. Kylie, play the clip.
God say is the answer, is the solution for the homosexual in 2022, here in the New Testament, here in the book of Romans, that they are worthy of death. These people should be put to death. Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with the crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches.
Okay, did you hear the people in the background, how he fired them up? And they're like, that's right. That is like the white nationalist, proud boy, this evangelical, that white rage is a through line through the MAGA movement. And it's something that people are not acknowledging, because so many politicians don't want to touch religion. They don't want to touch it. But this religion has been organized and hateful and ambitious for decades. And
I completely agree. It has been organized and hateful and ambitious for decades. As we have looked at consistently Okay, consistently, there is so much money behind mobilizing the evangelical Christian church. There is so much money behind using fundamentalism to promote authoritarianism. Okay, and so the women are the ones that fall for these crooks first. Go fuck yourself. Okay, what the fuck is that? Why is that speech legal? The United States is crazy? Yeah, that speech is totally fine. Apparently, it's totally okay to stand on a pulpit and incite actual violence and mobilize people, in the sense that he had people in his audience actively out there, being so vocalized and mobilized and fired up, emotionally triggered and ready to go, apparently, execute gay people, as this pastor is talking about. Proud Boys are the gayest of them all. I completely fucking agree. You better fucking believe that all of those people that yelled, yeah, boy, howdy, we should go kill the gays, they are some of the gayest motherfuckers in the house. How many times do we have to go through this iteration of repression that just, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. This is my home state. It's so embarrassing. You thought of me when you saw this clip? Yeah, thank you. Great. I'm obsessed. I mean, thank you, like, sincerely, but God damn it, Oklahoma, you've got me fucked up. Why do random ass people like Jennifer Welch and myself have to go on here and be like, hey, by the way, maybe we shouldn't be violent? Maybe we should take a breath about how important your God is, or your 2,000-year-old man who died on a cross is, and instead focus on, I don't know, bettering the material conditions for everyone. It's insane. It's absolutely insane to me. So I really have to give a props to the I've Had It podcast. I actually, like, as much as people say, hey, you should collaborate with the I've Had It podcast, you should, whatever, I very much, like, I need to start consuming a little bit more of their content, in all of my free time. Because they are doing really good work here in Oklahoma, where I think that here in the United States, it's some of the most important work, because as we need to get a rein on Christian nationalism and Christian fascism and religious fundamentalism before it is too late. And it is the work of the I've Had It podcast, Jen and Pump, and myself, on a smaller scale, to kind of keep it in check, so that it doesn't continue to be the guinea pig for a Christian theocratic nation, to be the guinea pig for more Christian fascism in this country. And so I just think that this work is very important, and I have to, my hat's off to the I've Had It podcast. So I agree with her that this religion has been organized and hateful and ambitious for decades. Let's get into it. Okay, so the question, American Taliban trying to degrade Christianity through Islam, to me is Islamophobic. That is the name of this stream, but I will get into a lot more of the nuances after we've watched this clip, because I agree that a lot of that, there's a lot of Islamophobia, but we'll get into it. Just bear with me.
Now they have a dipshit named Donald Trump, who is their Trojan horse, and they have a very well-funded heritage foundation, and they are instituting this. I believe this is a 911. In our state, in Oklahoma, it's already starting. We already have a total abortion ban. Women are dying because they're unable to receive abortions when they have complications with their pregnancies, or for whatever reason they may have. And we have the 10 Commandments that are being posted in schools. We have people want to teach in Oklahoma. Now it's going to be a part of the curriculum that Joe Biden didn't really win the 2020 election, which is Donald Trump's deranged pipe dream, because his ego is so fragile he can't handle it that Joe Biden kicked his ass in 2020. And
that is all correct. That is all correct. So whenever we're talking about how Christian nationalism isn't that bad on a federal level, we are totally missing the fact that it is 100% here, and it is 100% real on a state level. Like, it is the majority of my environment. Do you understand? So, like, it's not a fringe belief where I'm at. It's not.
Here's another headline from this deranged MAGA preacher. Baptist pastor says gay preachers should get a bullet in their brain. So what's the difference between Hamas and these people?
Okay. That is what I'm going to cover in a lot more depth here after this clip. Okay. So for those of you wondering what my thoughts are on that, the reason I'm not pointing it out is because I have a much longer spiel. So just hold on.
There isn't one, as far as I'm concerned. The radical
that is where I'm going to disagree with Jen. I think that there are a lot of parallels that we will draw from, but there is a very significant difference between MAGA and Hamas. A very significant difference that we will talk about in a second.
Hateful Old Testament psychos that want to kill innocent people who aren't like them. And it's already happening in these red states that these policies are killing women.
Correct.
Kylie put up this headline. A Texas woman died after being denied miscarriage care due to abortion ban, report finds. So this is a way that they're already starting to kill women. This is a way that the law is already unfair and unequal when this woman needs to receive abortion care after a miscarriage. They don't want to give it to her because everybody's too scared that the whack job politicians in Texas will arrest them and put them in jail. And this preacher that I played for you, there's a whole segment of YouTube. There's a whole segment
100%.
online.
This is
where
also
people
true.
Traffic in this, where they are wound up about this. And I believe this is the core of Trump's movement. And all of these mega churches that trot out,
Correct.
we're, trust Jesus and all of this stuff.
Correct.
These evangelical mega churches are hate breeding academies.
Correct. That is so important. Again, if you weren't raised in that environment, I think it's a lot easier to just discount it as, oh, that's just fringe, or that's the minority, like it's not as much of a threat. But as we are seeing, the more that Oklahoma and Texas the more Christian nationalism has a stronghold in these red states, the more it is actually getting intertwined on the federal level. Okay, so it is important. And I do think my prediction, unfortunately, I'm not excited about this. My prediction is that religious fundamentalism in the United States, as the economy tanks due to Trump's tariff wars, as the stability of the everyday person starts to become shakier and shakier, people will look at religious fundamentalism more. And we've seen this. Not on the whole, like the widest population, the demographics, the widest like swath of demographics on the population, people are leaving religion more than ever, but we are seeing the religious fundamentalism doubling down in the case of young white men, okay? We have seen that the statistics are showing that they are now doubling down on Christian conservatism more and more. And I think that is just the beginning. And it actually doesn't even matter. Like, I'm not even specifically talking about the number of evangelical Christians growing, because I think that, okay, so let me back up. My prediction is that the number of evangelical Christians on the whole in the United States will continue to go down as more and more people who have kind of already been on the fence or maybe we're just going through the motions, start to realize that aligning with this death cult is so harmful and dangerous both to themselves and others. Like, I think we will start to see population numbers shift away from evangelical Christianity, but I think that the evangelical Christians who double down, and as people are leaving evangelical Christianity more and more, and again, as like material conditions continue to destabilize, and we are all like, things get more tense throughout the rest of this new United States administration, my prediction is that the extremism, the religious extremism, and the religious extremist violence will climb. That is my prediction, because that is what happens when religious dogma is intertwined with political authoritarianism. So let's keep watching this.
Cannot stand the LGBTQ plus movement. You have parents that go to these churches and they find out that their child is gay. They completely disown their child, send them
That's
to a
also
Pray
true.
the Gay Away camp. This is happening in 2025. It's happening in Middle America. And these people are so happy about Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Moses Mike Johnson, all of these anti-gay politicians ascending to power. Kylie, put up the next headline. As Trump returns, state lawmakers pursue bills that would treat abortion as homicide.
That's insane.
Red state legislators have also introduced a slew of bills targeting abortion pills and minors' access to the procedure. So this is where, when I have that conversation with a very educated man, it shows you how much the world is missing this. And if you
I think young white males are being radicalized on the internet, though not churches. The Groypers and Nick Fuentes types are incels. That is correct, but the data does show that they are also being radicalized in Christian conservatism through an increase in Christian church membership, specifically evangelical church membership. So it is actually both.
Live in an evangelical state like I do, where you see that it's already, there is no separation of church and state.
Correct.
They are doing these things. They are taking away women's rights to health care. They are demonizing the LGBTQ plus community. They are preaching that they want these people executed. And this is a culture. This is their culture. It is a death cult culture.
Correct.
And I can't find a difference between far, right, Middle East, Sharia law style cults and this cult. I don't really see it.
That's what I'm going to push back on. And like, this is not, I love the I've Had It podcast. Again, I stand by what they're doing in Oklahoma and in their work. I stand by what they're doing. I would love to, have a conversation with them someday or whatever. This is no shade to them. I just think that it's not the entire conversation. And there's also kind of like, I hate to do this, but like a generational gap in the understanding of comparing Middle Eastern religious fundamentalism with Western religious fundamentalism. And I think that that is an important caveat to make when we are comparing the differences between both of those, as Jennifer calls them, cults. And so I am going to push back on that when I get to my rant here in a minute.
Be a difference because they all pick on the same people.
But that is true, right? So they do. Patriarchal religious fundamentalism does always pick on the same people: women, LGBTQ people, etc. So there is some points that Jennifer is making here that I think are very important and key. I'm just gonna add a little bit of nuance to the conversation in a minute.
And everyone needs to remember that the Speaker of the House, Moses Mike Johnson, as his big side hustle, he is completely embedded with all of these crazy evangelical preachers that think and believe exactly the way this Oklahoma City worker does. He and his wife started a Pray the Gay Away camp. He and his son monitor each other's porn,
That's
which
weird.
is bizarre and weird. But this is such a Handmaid's Tale style mindset, and it is very much alive in Middle America, and they will not stop. They will go after women. They will go after the LGBTQ plus community, minorities. They will keep going and going because there is a brokenness. These people are so broken by their faith. They are religiously damaged and they have been spiritually abused, and they want to exact revenge.
I agree with that as well. I think that religious fundamentalism is always a symptom of the surrounding material conditions that are not serving people in ways that actually fulfills them spiritually, I guess you could say. So I think that is correct. I still think like my points here in a minute are going to explain the differences between MAGA and Hamas a little bit more, because I think that comparison and equating them in this sense is kind of missing the mark. But okay, let's finish this.
All of the people around them. This is a cult, and it is in the center of the United States federal government. And I want to remind you that just above Trump's office in the West Wing is that Paula White. Paula White is a big tongue talker, and she is a big grifter like all of these people. She sells like $1,000 for a prayer with an angel and all of this stuff. And you've probably seen all of the imagery with all of these evangelicals, the hand wavers and the tongue talkers and the anti-gay and the Bible thumping, the hellfire damnation crowd. They are all around Donald Trump, and they tell him, "You're chosen. God wants you to do this." And Trump has always been kind of famously not religious, but I think he's been around these people so much that even he is starting to believe it. There was a clip a few days ago where he says, "Yeah, we're going to have the Olympics and we're going to have the World Cup. And, if I would have won 4 years ago, if they would have," he claims that it was stolen from him, but and we all know it wasn't. Then this wouldn't have happened. But God did this. Even he's using this language. God did this for me, and that's what they all think, and that's what they tell him all the time. And this is a very, evil movement right inside of the federal government. These are the anti-government people that are militia people. They all hate the gays. These evangelical Christians hate the gays. And that's what Trump's big tent is. It allows all different facets of people that hate marginalized people to group together with Trump as their, ringleader of hate. And so I just wanted to point all of this out from our other podcast episode because I see it here. And if you have been in an evangelical state or lived around evangelicals, this hatred and this homophobia is very, very, very real. And they will not stop. This is one of their singular focuses, women not getting abortions and demonizing and criminalizing homosexuals and women who want to have access to health care. All right, that's all we have for today. Very uplifting episode.
Okay. So, all right. Now I'm going to get into this. Again, I agree with 90% of the things that Jennifer was saying. And I went back and forth on whether or not I even wanted to cover this, but I do think that as she makes the comparison of MAGA and Hamas, I do think that it is important to kind of give a little bit more context and nuance to this conversation. This is no shade to Jennifer. It's just more feedback to consider when we're talking about religious fundamentalism. Because again, I totally agree that the issue of religious fundamentalism where I'm at is 100% real. And I think it's only going to escalate the violence against all different kinds of marginalized communities, all different kinds, right? I've talked about this extensively. That's literally why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I agree with that. However, okay, so as we saw in the clip, Jennifer does make really some very good points about how the MAGA cult is a very serious threat due to its violent religious fundamentalism. I did take some notes, so I'm going to just read them at this point because I didn't want to miss anything. So here we go. Okay. So again, I agree with the majority of her points, but I do have a lot to say about one thing specifically. The MAGA movement in the United States and Hamas in Palestine are both rooted in religious fundamentalism. But are they the same, particularly when it comes to violence? I would say yes in some ways and no in others. I want to start by being very upfront here. I will never condone violence. That's not what this is about, especially religious violence. In fact, that's one of my very core values that I stand by. I also condemn all forms of violence against civilians. My critique of religious fundamentalism applies across context, okay? Christian, Islamic, or otherwise. This is going to be a political and moral analysis and not a defense of any organization. I do recognize, though, that historically speaking, true liberation and justice-based initiatives have come about both in peaceful and violent ways. I don't advocate for violence personally. I think there are better ways to go about things and progress, but I also think that when certain forms of oppression, systemic oppression, have been too extreme, historically speaking, violent responses have been both unjustifiable and inevitable. And as far as religious violence goes, I'm just never available for that. Now, both Hamas and MAGA have evolved into political forces that use religious fundamentalism to shape national identity. But how and why they operate is very different. For those of you who are new to my story, I grew up in evangelical fundamentalist Christianity for the first 2/3 of my life. Some of what I'm about to relate to you comes from my own studies as an adult, and some of it comes from personal experience as a child raised in religious fundamentalism. One thing I often try to make clear to people who were not raised in that environment is how political indoctrination went hand in hand with that upbringing, okay? I wasn't just raised to be a Christian. I was also explicitly raised to be a conservative. And before you argue to me that MAGA isn't nearly as related to religious fundamentalism as Hamas is, let's look at the numbers. 80% of white evangelical Christians in the United States voted for Trump in both the 2016 and 2024 elections. Meanwhile, I couldn't find more recent numbers about Palestinian Muslims specifically supporting Hamas, but as of mid-2024, Only 41% of all Palestinians, Muslim or otherwise, in the West Bank support Hamas, and even less than that do in Gaza itself, according to my understanding. So you tell me, which group of religious practitioners are more intertwined with their region's political movement? Religious fundamentalism is a form of strict adherence to religious beliefs, often characterized by conservative interpretations of religious texts and a rejection of modern values and secularism. It's a broad term used to describe a variety of movements and individuals within different religions who share a common approach to faith, but not necessarily a single set of beliefs. In that sense, both MAGA/evangelical Christianity and Hamas, the Islamic resistance movement, are rooted in religious fundamentalism. And violence often goes hand in hand with that. Religious fundamentalism, like that seen in both Hamas and MAGA, is undeniably dangerous, but neither exist in a vacuum. Religious fundamentalism often emerges as both a symptom of suffering and a tool for consolidating power on behalf of those in power. That's true for both Hamas and MAGA. But it is important that we make some distinctions because they're also both coming at the same global system from different from different ends of a spectrum of harm. And that shapes the fact that the goals they're pursuing are fundamentally different. So I want to make a few key points here. Let's start with Hamas. Groups like Hamas often gain traction in environments of extreme instability where secular political solutions have failed and people are desperate for meaning and identity in the face of a decades-long settler colonial project that has officially been recognized by global experts as a genocide. As a result, the religion of Islam for this violently oppressed community has become a rallying point and, yes, also a justification for certain internal forms of discrimination and violence. The complexity here is that Israeli occupation and decades of displacement have created the conditions in which these hardline religious ideologies flourish. When people are stripped of land, rights, dignity, etc., religious fundamentalism can seem like the only unshakable ground left to stand on. Fundamentalism thrives on inflexibility. It is based on recognizing certain fundamentals as incontrovertible truth, usually based on an old-ass book that is upheld as divine scripture. Unfortunately, though Hamas claims to defend Islam and Palestinian identity, it has often done so in ways that harm its own people and reinforce authoritarianism. It does manipulate religious narratives for power, controlling social norms, suppressing dissent, and justifying violence, including against queer people and women. This mirrors how religious dogma has been abused in many other contexts, including Christian nationalism in the United States, and including the widespread violence of European Christianity only a couple hundred years ago. It is Pride Month, so I want to add a little bit more nuance here. While it's absolutely true and necessary to name that Hamas enforces policies that harm queer people, it's just as important to understand that Israel's weaponization of LGBTQ plus rights to justify colonial violence is not actual liberation either. This concept is usually referred to as pinkwashing, which uses surface-level appeals to LGBTQ plus rights to distract from the violent oppression of Palestinians, including queer Palestinians. This is similar, though not nearly the same, as to when major corporations change their logos to a rainbow-colored version for the month of June in the United States, as long as the status quo is in favor of said pinkwashing. However, Zionist organizations like Stand With Us have famously run ads claiming Israel is a gay paradise while depicting Palestinian society, including Hamas, as uniformly barbaric. However, being Palestinian in Israeli society breeds just as much, if not more, discrimination, and violence. Apparently, one's ethnicity is quite significant when it comes to human liberties in an ethno-state. I do think it's important to critique Hamas's discrimination against LGBTQ plus people, but we need to do so without falling for the narrative that Israel is somehow the savior of queer Palestinians. Neither religious fundamentalism nor state violence leads to queer liberation. True solidarity means opposing all systems, whether Hamas's patriarchal control or Israel's colonial pinkwashing. All of this uses queerness as a pawn while oppressing the most vulnerable. And one of my common points on my platform is the resolution to critiquing an ideology without attacking the individual adherents. We must be able to critique theocratic violence without falling into Islamophobia or ignoring the very real, ongoing colonial oppression that fuels it. The problem isn't Muslims, just as the problem isn't everyday Christians when it comes to Christian fascism. The problem is how authoritarian power latches onto fundamentalist religion to consolidate control. Whether it's Islamic or Christian, when religion is used as a political tool, it often upholds patriarchal, homophobic, and authoritarian values. We have seen this time and time again. That's why critiques of religion remain essential, even while standing, and this is key, with people oppressed by empire. Again, religious fundamentalism, like we see in Hamas, is dangerous, and the violence that results from it is always unjustifiable. But it is not born in a vacuum. It is a byproduct of a brutal occupation, a failed state, and decades of colonization. That doesn't excuse the violence or bigotry, but it does explain why people cling to rigid ideologies when everything else has been stripped away. I can condemn the religious fundamentalism of Hamas and still stand with Palestinian civilians against settler colonial violence. Both things are true. Another thing I always talk about is how, while I do think that all patriarchal religions cause more overall harm than good, and it's important to me to address that, I still don't spend a ton of time and energy specifically critiquing Islam for many reasons. One, I have more experience with Christianity. I was raised in that environment beyond just church on Sunday, right? Because I also went to the Bible-based private high school affiliated with one of the mega churches here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have a much deeper understanding of this form of indoctrination, so it makes more sense for me to focus my efforts there. Number two, I'm in the United States, where Christian nationalism is more of a threat than Islamic religious fundamentalism. It just is. And number three, when people in the United States critique Islamic ideology, it's important to maintain the context of global power structure and how white people have consistently used racial supremacy narratives intertwined with religious critique. Goddess knows we don't need yet another white woman telling people of color what they should or shouldn't believe. All of that can be true while I have this conversation. Now, let's talk about MAGA for a second. MAGA's religious fundamentalism is not a symbol of standing up to occupation, but a symptom of lost dominance. MAGA's Christian nationalism emerged from perceived cultural loss, not systemic oppression. And that is because on so many levels, white evangelical Christians in this country have way more power and way more resources than any other demographic. They are intentionally being manipulated to view as villains, aka immigrants, trans people, and people of color on the other side of the world. MAGA's base feels disempowered, I'll grant you that. But it's not the disempowerment of no longer, but it is the disempowerment of no longer being at the top as social progress has moved forward. The sense of grievance is manipulated by elites and think tanks like the Heritage Foundation to fuel reactionary backlash. Reactionary refers to a person's opposition to social, political, and economic change, which is to say, general progress. MAGA attempts to use religion as a tool to restore lost dominance. And that's why there's such a glorification for the good old days when, I guess, women couldn't vote and schools were still segregated. And we have seen actual violence committed on behalf of this movement, like January 6th, or Pastor Dylan Oz, a hate-filled preacher in my home state of Oklahoma, preaching from the pulpit about executing gay people. And in a sense, MAGA supporters are victims of, as I've covered extensively on my platform, targeted and wildly financially backed propaganda that mobilizes them to be afraid of their neighbor instead of recognizing how billionaires are actually the ones ruining their lives. The reality is, both Hamas and MAGA showcase how religious fundamentalism thrives in moments of crisis, but no, Hamas and MAGA Christian fundamentalists are not morally or structurally equivalent. They are both dangerous religious nationalist movements, but they arise from radically different material conditions and serve opposite roles in the global power structures. Because another key difference is the material conditions surrounding both of these movements. Hamas is operating from a stateless, blockaded, occupied territory surrounded by war and poverty. MAGA is operating from the richest, most militarized empire in the world, an empire that thrives on the exploitation of continued capitalistic exploitation of the global south, the Middle East, and the rest of this world's natural resources. None of this means Hamas is better than MAGA or good at all. I want to make that very clear. That's not the argument here. It just means that we cannot collapse both of them into the same category without erasing the context of settler colonialism and empire. Suffice it to say, whenever we see religious fundamentalism gain power, we need to look at the surrounding material conditions and ask ourselves what's actually going on here. Because a healthy society does not have religious fundamentalism. I can tell you that much. And that is why I wanted to bring this up, because I loved so much of what was said on this clip from the I've Had It podcast. I think it is such important context to explain to people outside of Oklahoma or Texas or any of these very red states who have grown up in evangelical Christianity, who have grown up being indoctrinated into both religious extremism and political extremism, right? To grow up in that environment, to look around, to go to the supermarket and see, you guys, MAGA hats are not 1 in 10, it's 9 in 10 around here. Do you understand? And yes, cities throughout the country are very often islands of blue in a sea of red, politically speaking, as we often say. Not that I'm a huge fan of the Democrats in the first place, but you know what I mean. There is something to say that I have found a lot of like-minded community members here in the more urban part of Tulsa, Oklahoma. But on the whole, I can't go to a music festival without seeing sometimes, okay, music festival isn't a very good example, but the Tulsa State Fair. When I go to the Tulsa State Fair, it comes around every September. I see more MAGA hats than rainbows. Does that make sense? It is pervasive, and it is only growing, maybe not necessarily in numbers, but as it continues to grow in power by Christian nationalism getting cemented in the White House, it is growing also in specifically these red states, and it is growing in the extremism on the religious front. And that's just something that I think, okay. My mods were chatting. Oh, okay. Thank you, Matt, for the gifted 5 memberships. Also, someone gifted subscriptions on Twitch the other day. Thank you, Robbie, for the subscription on Twitch. Hello, first time chatters. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for the support, you guys. Okay. I'm glad you guys are down with what I was trying to explain here, because I think it is so important. Again, I really hated to do this because I don't want to cast shade on the I've Had It podcast, but I just think that comparing MAGA and Hamas, that easily it just erases really important things that I care about. And again, at the end of the day, a healthy society will not have religious fundamentalism at all. That is a basic statement to me. Obviously, a lot of my critiques and commentary is from the ideological and religious perspective. That's why I call myself more of a cultural commentator than a political commentator. But of course, again, like the results of my work I actually care the most about is related to the material conditions and how all of that manifests based on the religion and cultural ideologies of individuals and communities. So, I am really glad I got all of that out, and I'm really glad a lot of you guys resonated with that. Thank you, Matt, for the gifted subscriptions. You guys, my community is the best. I really appreciate all you guys are doing, and with that, I think I actually have something kind of exciting to announce. This is crazy. I can't believe I did this. I'm already scared. Let's see if it's live. I made a post on the old IG. I scheduled it for like literally right now. So hold on. Let me see if it's live. Oh, it looks like it is. Okay. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. This is my announcement. I've been teasing it for like I've been teasing it for like a week now, and I have something I'm getting nervous. Yeah, I know, I'm nervous too. I cannot even believe. Okay, for those of you who have tuned in to my platform, to my live streams and everything, I've been kind of talking about how on July 4th, I will be launching a very specific project. And I cannot even believe I'm actually here. This is crazy. This is honestly so crazy. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I guess we'll do it because I've been promising it. I've been promising it to myself and now you guys. So we're going to watch the announcement reel on my Instagram. And just be nice. I'm so nervous. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay. I can't believe I'm doing this. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Okay. I've been busy. With everything going on in the world, I decided it was time to start sharing my story. You see, I was raised to be an evangelical Christian, and here in the United States, that means I was also raised to be a conservative. Now, I'm about as non-religious and far left as you can get. By live streaming and making content regularly, I've been having more conversations about things that actually matter, and my community has really been growing. I think that's a testament to how my work is really resonating with people. The fact is, we're all just so fed up on so many levels with how things are going, which is why I'm determined to continue covering these subjects in my commentary. And I have a special announcement. July 4th is approaching, and if you know anything about me, you'll know I'm just so patriotic. God bless America. So on our beloved Independence Day, I'll be releasing a song. Yeah, I'm going there. I suppose I just needed a creative outlet to explain how I truly feel about the United States. I can't wait to share it with you guys, as nervous as I am, and I'll be dropping more details about the song in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And of course, follow/subscribe to stay informed and inspired. My name's Kayse, by the way. I am releasing a song. That's crazy. I can't believe I'm admitting to that. That's crazy. That's a song. I know. A song. Who knew? Isn't that crazy? Did you guys expect that? Did anyone guess that? Probably not, because that's just so out of left field. But it is written. I'm recording it tonight. And it is so good. So over the next couple of weeks, by the way, go to my Instagram and like that. If you guys have a second, my Instagram is literally my name. All of my handles, because my name is so weird, are just actually my name. If you guys want to go and like that and share it, I would be so grateful, because I am trying to generate some hype about the song. Yeah, nobody expected that. Yeah, nobody guessed that it was going to be a song. Look, so I have a little bit of experience with music, but it was from comedy. So like I teamed up with another female comedian here in Tulsa, Oklahoma around 2019 actually. And so we got together and we teamed up and we did like we made a couple of songs. One of our first big song was called Big Tit Energy. Love that for us. And so I also like did some single work as far as like in my comedy performances. So for context, I did stand-up comedy for 7 years. And so some at some point I did a couple of solo like comedy based songs. So I very much, no, it's not an Instagram story. It's an actual post. Like it's an actual reel. If you guys want to go and like it on my Instagram. Here it is, Kayse Melone on my post. It's this one right here on the far left of my, just like my face. So that middle photo is me in 2021 with bangs. And then the one on the left is me now with bangs. So I very much have enjoyed considering my music bug again. I have very much like really gotten into it. And July 4th is the release of my first solo song that's not necessarily comedy based, if that makes sense. So yeah, and you guys can imagine like how hard it's gonna go. I'm gonna be dropping like the title, I'm gonna be dropping like the intro and the cover art over the next few Fridays. And so that 2021 Kayse looks like a rock star because she was. So over the next few Fridays, I will continue to drop more announcements about the song that I will be releasing on our favorite day of the year, Independence Day. I love Independence Day so much. I'm so patriotic. I love it so much. So there's the announcement. For those of you guys. Also, oh, I forgot. Sorry, when I was going on my rant, there were some super chats that I wanted to shout out and just generally appreciate. If you actually Google Hamas oppression of LGBTQ, you will see that it's a big nothing burger. Sure, I you know, as far as like context, like that's probably on me for not doing a little bit more research. I think that religious fundamentalism, I still stand by that it always results in the discrimination against the same groups of people. But is it Screamo? I don't know. I'm not going to tell you guys any more about the genre or the sound. I think until, what would that date be? So next week, I'm going to tell you guys the title. The week after that, I'm going to give you the cover art. And then the week after that, so that on the 27th, of June, you will hear the intro and you might be able to get kind of an idea of the sound. Okay. So yeah, I will be continuing to drop those little nuggets here and there. Again, I would so appreciate it if you guys went on my Instagram and followed my Instagram, and liked this reel, this announcement, so I can kind of start getting the, it's rap, yo. How hilarious would that be? Of course, yeah, because we need another white person rapping. Do mods get early access? I think we can work something out. We can see about that. Maybe because my mods have done so much, we'll figure that. Okie Country Bluegrass. These are all great guesses. Yeah, I'm super excited too. I'm very, very, very excited. Yeah, it's a post, and I will be continuing to post more about it. I'm also posting this reel on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Again, if you guys want to help me out and kind of start boosting the announcement, as well as like coming posts to start rebuilding my brand. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I kind of started just like a very small rebrand that's also going hand in hand with releasing the song. Really, all that's really been released now is like this new font I'm using on both thumbnails and then other things like my website, etc. I love my website, but I'm gonna change this photo. I'm gonna change all my photos, obviously, to me with bangs because that's more accurate. But yeah, that is what is going on now. So that's the announcement. Kind of crazy, but we're here. When you're here, your family. Thank you everyone so much who has been so active in this community. Like, again, as my announcement reel indicated, I think it is just a testament to these important conversations that we are having, and I stand by you guys. I stand by what we're building together. It's gonna be doom metal, isn't it? Is it a rap song? LOL. I don't know, you guys. I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you until June 27th. I don't make the rules. Just kidding. I do make the rules, and that's the rule. I'm not going to tell you about the actual sound or the style or the genre until June 27th. But next week, you'll get the title. Next week, you'll get the title of the song. But tonight, so I was supposed to record, I have all the instrumentals, but I was supposed to record the vocals Wednesday night, but we had to reschedule, so I'm actually recording the vocals tonight. So yeah, it's, because again, I'm just not doing enough, right? Like, I just have so much free time on my hands. I was like, why not launch the creative aspect to my work as well? I really love having these conversations. Like, everything we're talking about, the things I talked about today, that's all so important to me. And I think that for a long time, I was kind of going back and forth and ended up almost pigeonholing myself when it came to the work that I wanted to do, like, you know, my long-term capital W work, and going back and forth between kind of like a cerebral or intellectual approach to the things I care about, which is kind of related to specifically commentary about current events and culture, etc. But also, you know, I still have this creative aspect. Like, I still have this very artistic drive that I very much insist upon myself in having an outlet for. And I just think it's gonna manifest in a song that I release. As far as where it's gonna be released, it really depends on how soon my audio engineer and I can get it finalized as to whether or not it'll be on like Spotify and Apple Music, etc. What it will definitely be on, because it's going hand in hand with a music video. It will definitely be released on July 4th on YouTube. It might be a little bit after that as far as like Spotify and Apple and everything else, but that's to be determined. But I'm very determined. It's going to happen 4 weeks from today, right here on the YouTube channel. Twitch, you're going to have to hop over to YouTube. Actually, on July 4th, I will be doing like a much longer stream, kind of gearing up to the release of the song. I haven't decided what time that day I'll release the song and the music video, probably like noon or 3, so that we can kind of build up to it. But anyway. Oh, I've been missing your chats. Sorry. Oh, I got another super chat. Hello. This is how you take over a country, you stirring religion, and okay, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, the song is not political, right? I don't know. You guys will have to decide based on is Greta Thunberg in Gaza? I'll have to keep an eye on that. I am making a music video. Yes. The song is not political, right? Yeah, you're gonna have to determine for yourself. Maybe by the title next week you'll know what the song will be about. But yeah, you'll see. Okay, thank you guys so much. That was exciting. We talked about things that really matter to me, and we had a great announcement. Greta is mother. Correct. Okay. I will see you guys tomorrow. I have a big day ahead of me. I have a song to record tonight, and I am very excited for 4 weeks from now. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you to my mods. Be nice to my mods. Give them some love. And then I will see you guys tomorrow. It's going to be great. I love you. Be safe, be well, make choices, do your things, go live your lives. And I will